Hello everyone, good evening. I guess I should probably check if this is all working on YouTube. Ah yeah, seems to be working. I don't know what the latency is like though. Um, I wonder if I should if I got everyone to emote something, then I could time it. Last time it was about 30 seconds latency, and I wasn't seeing the questions and responses in real time. Looks a bit better today. Okay, so today is AMA for Knitties, so welcome to everyone here. I've got the chat in YouTube open, and I've also got the chat in the Discord server open, so I can check both of those places. I'm just trying to get all my different screens organised. You know, I've got these two. Well, actually, I've got three monitors because I've got my Wacom over here. But yeah, I've got these two ridiculous 5K monitors, and no matter how many pixels you've got, it's never enough, is it? Okay. Yeah, so this is one of the samples that I had done, Potato, the hat. And it's also got one of our custom foils on it as well. They're pretty cool. So just playing around with things for con, you know. It's unlikely we'll be doing hats or anything, but so we're quite keen to keep everything on the Knitties stand free. Like, we're not going to be taking any money off people, you know, visiting us. So anything we do has to be fairly affordable to produce, but obviously we're a bit of a stickler in terms of a project with regards to quality. So yeah, it's got to be right. Nathan would like to invite us to an event in October. Contact Jacket Potato. So if you go into the Knitties Discord server, just contact Jacket Potato. He's best positioned as the first point of call for anything that related to that. Or yeah. Okay, I need to stop looking at this screen because the camera's over there. But this is where all the chat is. So what we're going to do is we're going to be, it's obviously an AMA, so you can ask me anything. These AMAs for Knitties tend to be not that many questions. I don't know why that is. Maybe it's because we answer a lot in our chat anyway, and we're quite open about what we're doing. But what I thought I'd do to fill in the gaps tonight is go through how Knitties are made, and specifically this is quite interesting with the collab that we've recently done with Meepa and Weird Kitties, in that it's the first time anyone's ever actually done any, well, apart from Potato contributing an asset for the Knittimals, it's the first time anyone else has ever done any 3D work on a Knitty. So there were some interesting things that needed to be that we needed to work through, and I just thought I'd sort of show basically the process of how we create a Knitty essentially. So if you have any questions, just drop them in the chats, and I'll keep looking over there periodically. But what I'll do is I'll just switch to my other view, and hopefully that should all be working okay. Yes, it is. So Knitties, they started out quite simple. Like Potato was saying earlier that the evolution from the first S2 Knitty, which was Jet, all the way up to the latest S2 Knitty, which is Sparrow tomorrow, is quite significant. And that's because, like, obviously, like, you kind of continuously review your work. Working on your own projects and your own passion projects is one of the hardest things to do because you never finish. Because every time you work on it, you get better. So you always want to review all the things that you've done. And yeah, so the Knitties now, like, they are higher poly, they are optimized better, like as an overall package. So the textures are optimized far better, and in terms of the in-game assets, having, like, I've got the process pretty much pinned down now in terms of actually just everything that you see on the S2s that we produce now, it is actually the in-game asset, like, and it's not a different file for the in-game asset, it's all exactly the same file, which is pretty cool. It wasn't always like that because I was trying to pin down various aspects of the process. So this, what you see on the screen at the moment, is the Knitty template. This is the template for a Knitty that gets sent out to projects that want to collaborate with us. So there are currently 4 projects, I think, 4 different projects who have got a copy of this, who are all requested a copy of this to work on stuff. And basically what you see is there's nothing really special here. It's just everything in terms of the latest version, the latest iteration of a Knitty, all the proportions and such. And also, it's not rigged, but you can see you get these little red pins that show you where the main joints are, the main deformation points are, so that people can kind of like figure out where things will bend. So they know, like, the knee is here, so if I've got a boot, then it's good not to go above the knee, you know, that kind of thing. So this is kind of where all the Knitties start out, and this is where I start when I'm designing a new one as well. And actually I'm designing my last S2 Knitty at the moment, which is the airdrop. So I'm working through that at the moment, so that it's ready to go in a couple of weeks. So yeah, I mean, these guides, like, these are just really helpful for people, I think, when it comes to, like, just testing things out and all that sort of stuff. I mean, the Knitties are really hard to work with anyway because they're ridiculous proportions. Like, the head proportion is absurd. Like, you can't have a collar, really. Like, it's really hard to have a collar without it going through the head. So that's something that, you know, there are some little nuances that you have to work around with Crypto Knitties. I mean, the legs are ridiculous. Like, rigging the legs on a Knitty is so challenging because there's barely any room for deformation. So that's why the shoes were a really good addition, because we can now get an extra point of articulation in the toes, which we didn't have before. So it makes them look a little bit more complex. Well, because they are more complex, I suppose. So this is like where basically every design starts. So when Meeple was starting out with Sparrow, got a copy of this, and he requested a few other bits from me as well as we went through the design process. Yeah, okay, so that's basically kind of where we start. And what I'll do is I'll show you what came through. Let's see, I think it's this one. No, it's not that one. We may as well just work with this one. So this is basically, actually no, I will show you what comes through, because it's confusing when you go from a template to this. So I think it must be this one then. Okay, yeah, this is it. Right, so Just hide the joint system. Okay, so if you look here, these are the different assets that were sent over by Meeper. And these will have been modelled. Meeper's in chat actually, so you can tell us how they're modelled, but I'm assuming they're modelled using ZBrush, and then they're retopologized probably in Blender or something like that. And retopologizing is when you take a complex mesh and you make it less complex, right? And hopefully while retaining most of the surface details, if you can. So this basically has been retopologized. It's still quite heavy. Like for a Knitty, it's still quite a heavy mesh, and yeah, there are definitely some optimizations that can happen. And when I sort of go into crunch on the next Knitty Nook work period, or the next crunch period for Knitty Nook, I'll probably be going back and forth, like optimizing different things as I go through. But that won't, like, the optimization doesn't really need to happen right away. Like it won't happen before con. You know, it might, you know, the odd thing might get optimized in terms of the art, but it doesn't really need to happen. It's a long-term thing. You normally do that right towards the end. So let's go back into the previous one. Okay, I'll just check the chat. Okay, so I must apologise again. I've got really bad hay fever. Again, it's quite hot here again in the UK, and we're about to enter another heat wave, and I've been sniffing all day. Okay. How S1 was created. Okay, so there's a question in Discord this week about how S1 was created. So S1 was created in pretty much the same way. It's just that when I was doing S1, it was all rendered, right? It was all for the production process was to render them. And back then, I was just building some really simple procedurals out in Maya. So I used Arnold in Maya. So if you go into Maya, let's go into rendering. Actually, I don't need to, do I? I can just go into here, rendering editors, Hypershade. Then you'll see here, if you've seen my previous streams where I'm working in the node editor, the shader graph editor in Unity, this is very, very similar. These are the different materials that are on my Knitty at the moment. And I can click any one of these and I can kind of break it down and see all these nodes. And I've got a whole ton of different nodes that I can add into this, right? So basically I was building out procedurals in Arnold. So whenever you, like an S1 Knitty, none of those S1 Knitties actually have like image textures on them other than the, what does have an image texture on the skateboard decks that were designed by Crypties. Those are the only textures that are on the S1 Knitties. The rest is all procedural. And they were basically made, you know, they're very simple forms. And when I got to a certain stage with the procedurals, the sort of textures, the community were really happy with them. And I was like, oh, I really want to keep working on these and keep improving them. But the community were really happy with them. So we just sort of went with it. But they were not made to be output into a game engine at the time, because Knitties didn't start as a games project or a utility project. It was just like a collectible project, right? And so the S1s were built in a very different way to the S2s, because their output, their deliverable output was different. They were only ever meant to be rendered as still images that were then layered up using the various different systems. Well, a similar system to those that various systems that other projects use to create their things, their projects, their 10,000 variations like Hashlips. In the Knitties case, in the case of Knitties, some of you will recall that we actually live coded all of that combination stuff in the Discord server, which is really cool. I thought that was really interesting. We just did it all in Python in the Knitties Discord server, which was pretty awesome. and actually got some contributions from the community on various aspects of that, which was quite cool. So that was how it was made, and they were all made in Maya, rendered in Arnold, and then composited using my own custom bit of software. An interesting thing about those is the numbers, right? So on the tags on the legs, they've all got their own individual number, and that is actually a 3D number sequence that goes up from 1 to 10,000, and then it picks the relevant image number and drops it on the Knitty. So those all had to be rendered out well, not individually, it was a whole image sequence that was rendered out. Yeah, and basically they can be, any 3D software basically can be used to construct this kind of stuff. But I use Maya. I've been using Maya for nearly 20 years. Actually, over 20 years now, like 22, 23 years now. So it's quite hard to break away from it. But there are other pieces of software that we use as well. So at this point, what I've done is I've taken all the different art assets that were sent to me by Meepa, and I've brought them into the generic Knitty rig, and I have rigged it. And basically what that means is saying that shoe should be on the right foot, this shoe should be on the left foot, etc. And what I do is I do a rough rigging, well, technically it's a skinning process, so I do a rough skin, which means, basically assigning all the different objects to their different bones and joints and stuff, so that when I move the elbow, the jacket moves and all that kind of stuff. And then I put everything in its right place, and I do a pose. And then at this stage of the Knitties, I'm not fussed about getting all of the rigging and skinning correct. What I'm more fussed with is getting the pose correct and resolving any minor issues where we've got like an object going through another one. That's called clipping, which is inevitable, by the way. It's inevitable in any 3D project, especially one that's using real-time assets. So you're always going to have parts that clip through another part. So yeah, you just can't resolve it. Like if you look here, for example, it's a tiny bit of clipping just there where the trousers go through the top of the boot. But it's just, you can't avoid it. So then what I do is I bake it down, which means I remove the rig, and I go in and tweak any little bits that I want to. Because this is a still 3D model, we don't need to keep it rigged. We can just bake it down and tweak any bits that we need to that are like glaringly not correct, And then what I do is I assign different materials to each object. That's what all these different colors are. And that is going to give me, when I go into the next stage, the materials phase, it's going to give me something called a material ID, which basically means that anything with this material is going to have a different ID to this material, right? And that's just a workflow thing. You don't need that. It just makes it a little bit easier. Let me just skim through the chats. Yeah, so Meepa's saying, like, regarding the colour, it was an interesting problem to solve. Yeah, the Knitties are really hard to work with. Anything that's big head, right, is very hard to work with. You kind of need very specific solutions. The Knitties' shoulders are kind of quite high as well, like they're quite high into the neck, which means that there's no room there either. How did you guys decide on a pirate? We actually decided in the team chat that we wanted a pirate before we started the current set of Knitties. We went through different ideas, and pirate was one of the first ones that came up. Have you seen my parrot, by the way? It's there. Okay. Was the hook and the saber a big debate topic on that? It was a little bit, actually. So the hook was okay. I think we were okay with the hook, but the saber, we talked about that and we wanted it to be like a toy-like saber, so it is blunt. Yeah, so it's not it's not got a sharp edge on it. So we kind of wanted it to be almost like one of those Lego sabers, like with the dull edge on it. So yeah, there was actually a quite a bit of chat about that, how to handle that. I think a similar amount of chat on the next one that Meepa's working on at the moment regarding something in a similar vein. So yeah, obviously Knitties has got its kind of brand identity, and part of that is not having any kind of like realistic weapons in there. So everything has to be fun, and kind of costume stuff is okay, I think, and in this case it's fine. Yeah. Okay, so Meepa did the whole pirate, and I just did the pirate chest on this one, and then my role in this is doing all of the materials. So we then jump into a bit of hello. One of my camera feeds. So we then jump into a piece of software called Substance Painter, and I've used this on stream before. This is actually a piece of software that I worked on when I was at Adobe. And it's fairly standard these days, like for people to use this, but it kind of basically it does a lot of the hard work for you in regards to generating materials and such. So this has actually got a couple of different styles on it. So like we've got the hat from the I think that's the calico hat, but this is the mono variant of Sparrow. Notice that I've just got the standard like honey or dark honey yarn colour here. I opted to go for a green in the end. It just looked, I hadn't done a green one in a while, so opted to do a green one. So basically each variant here, this is kind of like Photoshop, it's just applied to a 3D model. And you'll see that on the hat material here, the calico hat is turned on. And you'll see that part of the hat, like the shoes, are also part of the hat material. So that's the sort of thing like that I will resolve later on, like when I go into like more optimization for the game engine. I'll be picking that apart later on. Let's turn Guybrush on for all of this. Something to point out here is that I'm on like a really cool computer, like a really high-end computer, but none of the software is optimized for Apple Silicon at the moment. So it actually takes like longer than it would do on a on my old iMac to load some of this stuff up sometimes. Yeah, so I can just turn on whichever ones I want really, and sort of see what they look like. Okay. And Painter is a procedural system, which is where my interest in it comes from and where my contributions as a consultant were into the software. And essentially, you can define mathematically what leather looks like, for example, and then drag and drop leather onto an object. It will dynamically create that for you. So you can get like quite a lot of really cool effects very, very quickly. But there's a lot of stuff you can't get very quickly. Like there are systems that allow you to stitch, like add stitching automatically, but these are all hand done. So all of this stitching is applied by hand. So everything on here is hand stitched. You can see, like, I don't know if you've seen these in the previews, but in the images, like they're probably not high res enough, but each jacket on Sparrow has got a different pattern, and this is like an embossed leather type pattern, so I thought that was kind of cool. See if I can switch to a couple of different jackets so you can see them. Again, see, like it's taking ages to switch over. So this machine is like, it's crazy. it's crazy fast, right? It's just that this software is not optimized for it. Okay, so let's turn one of these on and it's gonna do its thing. Okay, so this is the Guybrush variant. So you can see that pattern there. Blackbeard you've already seen. Then we've got, I called this one Jack originally, but yeah, I went for Jolly in the end. Okay, so another sort of embossed pattern on the leather. And then we got Calico, which I think, like, unexpectedly is kind of proving to be a lot of people's favourite. So it kind of, I put this swirl pattern on Calico because it reminded me, like that red reminded me of some characters in Naruto, and I don't know why I thought it had like a red pattern, but like that red, it just reminded me of some of the Naruto characters, and so I added this swirl pattern on there, like a wave pattern, because of that. Yeah, so these are basically the different variants, and the map's got a bit of detail on it as well, which could be interesting. And yeah, so basically you can see like the shirt, like this part of the shirt is on a different texture to the back part of the shirt, which doesn't really matter for now, but I'll have to fix that in future for the game engine, otherwise it's just, yeah, it's not optimal. Anyway, so that's kind of where we end up at this point. Now, what you then do, right, is you take all of this and you export all the textures from this. Knitties, I've got my own PBR, not PBR standard, but my own PBR workflow, my own PBR pipeline for Knitties, which means I've had to set that up differently in Painter, because the maps that I want are different to the maps that Substance will output as default. So I've basically, like, I've got my own system for doing that, and it just brings out different maps to what is standard essentially. So let's open up this, and what we're going to do is we're going to jump into my documents. We'll go into the root Knitties folder. Let's go into S2 Knitties Sparrow. Oh, actually textures, that's what I need. There we go. So each one of these folders contains each of the textures for each variation. So if I go into the uncommon, then you'll see that there are 20 different images that get output, and for each material, basically, like if you look here, there's body base color, body metallic, body normal, and body roughness. So like I won't need all of these, because like metallic, if it's all black or if it's all white, then I don't need it, because I can define that with a parameter instead of a texture. But this one, for example, hat metallic, let's just bring that over here, like it's got these different areas defined on it that are metal, so I wouldn't be able to do that with a parameter. So essentially I need all 4 images for some materials, and I need fewer than 4 images for others. You can kind of see, like if you go onto the jacket, you can see like the base color of the jacket, so you can kind of see like the leather pattern and all that kind of stuff. Okay, so those are the different images that get output. So I've got the 3D model posed, and I've got my images. So what next? So it used to be that I would use Blender for the next step, or I have used like Maya in the past, like the S1s all used Maya to render, but basically what I need to do is I need to compile the textures and the 3D data into a GLB, like an AR-ready GLB or GLTF file, and I also need to render an image, like a thumbnail, for the NFTs. So how do we go about doing that? So normally I would use Blender, I started off using a piece of software that I'd worked on when I was at Adobe called Dimension. Some of you might have heard of it. And I went off that a little bit because the workflow it wasn't really great for working on 4 variations of the same thing. So it didn't really work for me. Whereas with Blender, I created a system in there where I could just switch up the texture directory and it would just pull everything in for me for the variations. And it also has really beautifully formatted JSON in the Blender output for GLTF. But Dimension became something else called Stager, and it's part of a system that when I was at Adobe they called it 123D, even though there were 5 steps to it. They called it 123D, right? And that was basically their roadmap for their 3D offer, which is still ongoing, by the way. They're still developing and buying things to put into that pipeline that they're working on. And part of that pipeline was buying out Substance from Allegorithmic and all this kind of stuff. Anyway, Stager is the newest version of Dimension. It replaces Dimension. And the most recent update is really good. And it enables me quite quickly to be able to work on like multiples, like relatively easy, like not as easy as Blender, but you know, it's relatively easy. The advantage of using a system like Stager is that it automatically like sets things up for ray tracing. I used to work in visual effects and animation, and the reason I moved into games, into real time, was because I hate waiting. I hate it. I've got no patience. So rendering, I despise it. Like, I love the mathematics of it, the technical art aspects of it. I love the technicalities of building out node systems for shaders and rendering systems. But when you press render and you've got to wait for 10 hours for your output, not interested in that. So what Stager does is it removes all of that from you, from your workflow, essentially. You've basically got a render button and yeah, you go into that and you press render, and it's going to render based on it's going to ray trace it all. In fact, you can actually ray trace directly in the viewport. If I click on ray tracing here, it's going to start ray tracing this, and if I spin this around, it's a little bit laggy, but you can kind of see the ray tracing working, which is pretty cool. So what I do essentially is I take the 3D model, the final pose 3D output, and I bring all the materials in, and here they are over here, and I drop them onto the Knitty, basically, and then I render it. I get the camera set up, get the lighting set up, and then I render it. And that's all there is to it. And Substance Stager has now got, well, it's always had GLTF output, but it's got a really nice GLTF output compared to Dimension. Fewer issues, fewer things that need to be resolved. So I can just I can use this same output as a GLTF file. So what happens then is I've rendered the image and I've got a GLTF output, and I'm just going to load up there we go, load up my docs here. Let's go into Sparrow. So I then get to the point where I've got some final output. So let's have a look at the uncommon. And you'll see in the uncommon, I've got this has come from Stager, so it names things. Like, that's the annoying thing about Adobe, is it inserts stuff into your JSON and your file names, which is a bit annoying, but I guess that's only if you're a bit of a snob and think that everyone should use like Blender or something. You know, yeah, there are people like that, you know, in the industry. But, oh my god, do you use Stager for this? And I'll be like, yeah, I did it in like 1/10 of the time that you did. So this GLTF file here. Let's see if we can open this up with something. This is actually just JSON. Text edit would be good, wouldn't it? So open up in text edit. So this is like the JSON for the output. And you can see here it just dumps all this stuff in it. And you know what, like if you remove this from this file, it won't work in Stager anymore, which is really annoying. So you've got to kind of leave it in there. I'm sure there's a way, like Adam will probably pull it out, it'll go, just get rid of that, and it'll work fine. Anyway, so basically in here there's like this big list of stuff, and if we scroll down the list far enough, then we're going to get to our different texture files, right? So it says here, yeah, images, Stager Sparrow images / wool base color.jpg. Okay, so that's like looking up these files here. Now, when these come out of Stager or any other program that outputs GLTF, they will not be optimized. These ones here, in particular, these files here, they look a bit weird. Like if I just open this up, looks a bit weird, right? And it's like, what is that? This is what's called a packed texture. If I open this in Photoshop, now Photoshop has been optimized for the M1 hardware, and it's like lightning. Okay, so you see, like, have a look at this image here. This is called a packed texture. Why is it called a packed texture? And the reason it's called a packed texture is that basically, if we go into the different channels of this RGB image, the different channels, RGB, 3 different channels, are being used for different things. So if I want to find out what is metallic on this model, or on this material, I just need to look up the blue channel, right? If I need to look at how rough something is, I look at the green channel. And if I want to look at the specular, then I look at the red channel. Okay? Different systems will pack differently, but essentially this is what GLTF uses. I'm pretty sure specular is red. I could be wrong. But blue is metallic and green is rough. Because those values are all grayscale, like they're just one linear value, 0 to 1, essentially you can represent them in one of these individual channels, and you can get 3 different images into one just by using the channels. And what happens is the software then packs them into one image. It packs those different channels into one image, and that's why this is called texture packing. And that's why these images look weird. It's because they're not actually designed to be looked at together, right? Red, green, and blue are not interoperable in a packed texture. Okay. So, but these will come out massive. And I mean, I can actually, let's just do it. Let's do one, right? Let's do one. I'm going to create a new folder here. I'm going to call this AMA GLTF. Okay. Let's jump into Stager. Export scene. Actually, I'll make it fair. I'm just going to export the selected object, which is, I'm trying to find it. Is it this one? Yes, it is. Okay. I'm going to export selected models. And I've got a few different options here. I don't want GLB. What GLB does is basically take all the GLTF output and compress it into a binary file, which I can't edit. I can't optimize it. So whatever file size the GLB is at, I kind of need to leave it there. It's never going to get any better. So I'm going to hit GLTF, and I'm going to just find my AMA GLTF. There we go. Like that. Hit export. It's going to do its thing. This is quite a complex model, so there's a lot of geometry in here that just takes a little bit of time for it to output. There we go. So now I've got my AMA GLTF. This is straight out of the software. Okay, so so if we look at these images here, I'm going to get info on this directory, and you can see here the images are 52.4 megabytes, which isn't a lot, but when you're dropping this stuff onto IPFS, that's a lot. So we need to optimize it. You know, if you're loading this onto your phone, that's a lot of data to load, regardless of where you are. So we need to optimize it. So what I then do is I go through these. I used to have a system that would automate this, but now I just do it manually. I just do it manually because I can make per texture decisions rather than automating it. That's not going to work forever. as the Knitties project gets bigger, as we all hope it would do, right, in the future, I'm going to have to develop systems to automate this stuff. But what I generally do is I convert everything to a JPEG, because we've got lots of PNGs in here, and some of them are 16-bit PNGs. Like these normal maps are huge, right? These normal maps are absolutely massive. If I right-click this one, how big is this one? 3.2 megabytes. It doesn't sound big, but it's quite big. Let's track out this one. 7.9 megabytes for the jacket normal map. The normal map is what gives it its fake bumpiness, like, you know, the surface macro detail. So all this needs to be optimized, but you can't just change everything to JPEGs and have it work. You've then got to go in and manually edit the GLTF, because the GLTF is looking for PNG texture files, right? So you've got to go in and change all the PNGs to JPEG. Okay, so that all happens, and I developed a really nice automated system for that, but now just in terms of quality, I prefer to just go in and manually go in and make sure there's no crazy artifacts and stuff in any of the compression. So if I go into the uncommon and right click this one, you see I managed, through optimization, I've got the images down to 8.4 megabytes, which is a pretty massive change, obviously. So that's what is that? It's 1/6 thereabouts of the previous, which is pretty cool. The bin is the 3D file. Normally on a Knitty, these are about 1 megabyte. On Sparrow, 7.9. So it's just this huge. Sparrow's like the biggest Knitty ever. So a lot of mesh, a lot of geometry on there. Okay, so then what happens is once I've optimized it, you wouldn't be able to do this with GLB, because if you output a GLB from Stager, you've only got this one file that you can work with. So once I do that, I convert the GLTF to a binary using various libraries that are available on GitHub. I just crunch it down into a GLB file. I did have a system for this, and I was firing it through Unity. If you recall the Knittimals system that we developed to output Knittimals from the engine, that can handle all of this as well. But there's literally like a drag and drop system that will spit all of this out into a GLB file. So that's what I use now. And then that gives us our final output. So we get our rendered output like this. So this is the thumbnail that is going to be on all of the Sparrow Jolly variants. Jolly, a few people have pointed out or asked if that was a reference to Jolly Rogers, the first pirate project on Cardano. And yeah, it was actually. It was. I think a lot of us like those. Fahad and I actually were trying to pull like the rarest ones. I think I actually pulled a rarer one than Fahad, but he went and bought a rarer one on secondary. I've still got loads of Rogers. I've got like 70 Jolly Rogers. I'd love to do something with them at some point. And so I've got the thumbnails and I've got the GLBs. So let's have a look at one of these GLBs, and we will look in the sort of the GLTF preview tool that most people use. And this is a little viewer called, if you just type in GLTF viewer, it's gltfviewer.donmccurdy.com. Now there are so many of these. Like there's the one that Pavia reskinned for their tool that they create. Well, they didn't create it, did they? They skinned it. They skinned an open. They skinned an open source. That's not spicy. That's what they did. Is they skinned an open source tool for their GLTF previews, and sort of removed all reference to the previous open source tool. Anyway, this is very similar. Like that open source tool uses the same stuff that Don McCurdy has developed, who's like one of the big developers in terms of GLTF. In team, like it's a little, no, it's not disrespectful, but we call this McCruddy because it's not great. Pool actually has a better preview option, I think, but basically just drag your GLB file in here and you can spin it around and have a look at it. There are some issues here, like with the lighting, it adds like crappy lighting and stuff. Anyway, so you can kind of take a look at it here and spin it around and stuff, just like you can when you're on Pool. Yeah, so and that's the final output, and that's like the journey of doing a Knitty, I guess. An S2 Knitty. And there are only ever going to be two. No, there's Sparrow, there's the one that comes after Sparrow, and then there's the airdrop, and that's it. Policy closes. No more S2s. Those assets, those textures, will not be available in any other format, like subsequently. You know, so everything that's been released on an S2 is like probably some of the most limited stuff that we'll ever release on Knitties, even though like you've got 100 of the same design, right? There are only ever going to be 100 of that particular hoodie or of that particular hat, which is kind of cool. Okay, so yeah, that's like a bit of a journey through S2s and how they're created. We've not really had many questions. A samurai ninja Knitty would be cool. Yes, I know a certain someone who would love a ninja Knitty. They asked if I would be able to do one for them as a sort of collab a little while ago, and now that we've got the blue labels, you know, product line, if you like, we've got somewhere to put that stuff, so we can do it somewhere where it fits. We've actually also recently revised our licensing agreement, so this is available to anyone, any project really, who wants to explore working with us, like collaborating with us. It's let me just have a quick look for it. But basically, we're going to be very open to collaboration from now on. We've been quite closed previously, but we're going to be definitely exploring, seeing if there are any projects who want to work with us on collaborating in the Blue Label product line. And there's nothing sensitive in here. It's just a generic collaborative license agreement. So this is basically for people who want to collab with us, and a little bit about Knitties, and what I've provided some examples here, you know, of like what their revenue would be from the mint, for example, for little things like, you know, if it's a project who wanted us to do all the work for them, then if we wanted to work with them, then their cut would be very different to if they were providing like all of the 3D work for us, you know. So that's all in here, and there's the whole licensing in terms of how we are allowed to use the assets, as well as the quite important aspect, in my opinion, of what we aren't allowed to use them for, which is people often leave off, like they like to leave their licensing agreements as open as possible. They like to give themselves an advantage. I've been there on the opposite side of that. I've done that, And I think it's very important just to clarify a couple of things that we can't do with someone's assets that they've created. So that's all in there. So yeah, we're going to be pursuing this more actively. So like I said previously, there are 4 projects who currently have the 3D files, and probably there will be more in the future, I hope. And we don't collaborate with everyone, but I think we'll be more engaged, I think, with collaborations in future, especially moving ahead into the Nook crunch, where we're going to start putting all this stuff into the game engine. We've already, you've done the alphas. We've shown we've developed the tooling for all of this, but now we're developing the world, like the world building aspect. Like that's the next stage, is we're world building, which is really exciting. But it's that world where people are going to be able to bring, like, see their stuff in it, which is going to be really great for projects that, like, they want to offer some kind of utility, for example, but maybe don't have game development people on team, that kind of stuff. Well, you can collaborate with us and do some design work and get your stuff into the Knitties world, essentially. So into Knitty Nook. The first people have been saying, like, when are we going to see Jet's skate shop? Jet's skate shop isn't actually going to be a skate shop anymore. It's going to be a stall, right? A stall as in a market stall. Well, that's the current vision of it anyway. But we're going to start off exploring a very specific area of Nook. So Nook is, if you imagine Nook as like a central hub for all these different locations, and as the world evolves, there'll be different links off to these different locations, right? There are going to be, I think, 4 specific locations that we work on initially, and one of those locations is thematic. Well, they're all thematic actually, but one of them is thematic and quite exciting to work on at the moment. So that's the first location we're going to work on. So rather than working on the central hub of Nook, we're going to work on this particular location off of Nook, which is really exciting, and that's what's going to be at Con, we hope. So it's that location we'll be working on for the next, like, 7 to 8 weeks, and taking to Con with us to show all of that, like, functionality, hopefully, which is pretty cool, I think. Well, I think it's pretty cool because I know what it is. So it's pretty exciting for me, and I think everyone's going to like it when they see it as well. So yeah, that's pretty much it, really, in terms of stuff that I was going to go through. But if anyone has any questions, then just drop it in chat and I'll pick it up. I was going to do like an unboxing tonight, but I haven't got my camera set up. So this is like a thematically relevant unboxing, the Return of the Obra Dinn, which is a really fantastic game. Like, I think if you're not into like action games and stuff, this is like, in this game you play the role of a like an insurance investigator. I'm thinking of Toast here, and you're basically like this ship that went missing has returned to port, and you're the insurance investigator who has to go and investigate what happened on the ship and determine whether the insurance should pay out. And it's quite a scary game, but it's not like an action game or anything. You're sort of investigating. You're trying to find all the different sailors and what happened to them, which is really cool. And this is like a limited edition version of the game. Maybe I'll unbox it tomorrow if I set up the camera. I'll set it up for you then. I picked up a few other ones like that I've just dug out. Oh, this one arrived today. I did mention that I've got a limited run games queue of like a backlog, right? Before I show you this one, Toast is asking, are there going to be any mini previews prior to the con? Yeah, absolutely there will be. Yeah, for sure. There'll be silhouettes and stuff, but I think there'll be some. Yeah, there'll definitely be some previews before con. Of Nook, yeah. So this one arrived today. This is like the re-release or it's basically they haven't done anything to it. It's just Quake. It's just released for the Switch, But it's been out on Switch for ages. Of course, it just takes them ages to make these physical editions. And I'm queuing these up for the next Knitty after Sparrow, so we can do some unboxing of some. This is heavy. This one. This is Doom 64, the Switch edition. I've got the Doom Classics collection, so we can do an unboxing of those FPS games. I think I showed I've got Streets of Rage 4 waiting to be unboxed. That's got like a big statue in it, but that's not really thematically relevant at this point. And also, when I was digging out Doom, I found this, which I've not played yet, and I was really looking forward to it. It's called Dark Quest 2. It's based on the Hero Quest series of board games. So yeah, I'm looking forward to playing a bit of that as well. Maybe on the flight over to Con on the plane. Take my Switch with me, maybe, if there's enough weight for it. Yeah, I think people will be really excited to see more of Nook. The thing is, as everyone knows, especially in Knitties, games development takes so much time, right? It just takes so much time, and every games project is finding this at the moment. We've been expecting it because we knew it was going to take ages, and with a small team, we just knew it was going to take ages. I'm just going to move my chat window over here, because then I don't have to keep looking over in the other window. Nope, that's the wrong one. I'll tell you what, I'll just switch to full cam as well. There we go. Let's load this up over here. Games development takes a lot of time, and I think people expect a lot, too much of most games projects. One of the things that we did really early on was do loads of updates really, really quickly. But I've had to put that on hold because of time issues. But now that we're closing out S2, I can dedicate the next crunch period purely to Nook development and any collabs that happen to come in during that time. We're not going to be actively minting for the next 8 weeks unless a collab comes in. So for example, if a dragon related team wanted to do a drop with us, then we could probably find time for that. But we're not going to be doing any specific Knitties drops. There was a question before actually about blue labels. Is there a blue label mint for Sparrow? And the intention was originally to have a blue label mint. The intention is still to have a blue label mint, but it's not going to be available tomorrow. I think what we might do is we might have it related to Con, maybe. We'll see. Yeah, I think some dragons would be really cool. I think if we did dragons as pets, then we'd do it as a series of Knittimals. We do another set of Knittimals that are dragons. That would be really awesome. But I think that things like hoodie customizations, hat customizations for particular projects, would be quite interesting collabs to offer. They're not particularly. They don't introduce a ton of tech debt for us. They allow us to keep working, right? So they keep income coming into the team, and they keep activity going on in the server. So they're a beneficial project, I think, a beneficial thing to pursue, right? But without wanting to bog us down at the moment, because S2s, this last set of S2s, because we introduced an additional set of tech debt in terms of introducing higher resolution Knitties and all that kind of stuff, this set have been really challenging to get through, you know. But if we're doing some simpler collaborations in the Blue Label line, which is price capped at 25 ADA, they'd be fairly, we could do those no problem. Someone just bought 24 Series 1 Knitties and is still going. That's interesting. We're not minting yet. I don't know if Endra is in the stream. I'm just going to respond here. No one's commented on my parrot. Pirate. There's some potato questions going on in chat. There we go. Yeah, he's in there. People buying these. Maxi Mono's gone. When Parrot Pets. That was nearly one. There might still be one. Okay, we'll give it a few more minutes and see if anyone else comes up with any questions. So feel free to ask anything about Knitties. We're always fairly open about stuff. I'm working currently on getting assets sorted for Con. So like, I'm hoping just to not shelve everything, but wrap everything up for Con so that I can just work on Nook for like 8 weeks solid. Some of those assets for Con actually require Nook to be like the graphics from the demo that we'll be doing. I think I'd like to put those on there, so I need to figure out how I go about doing that. Yeah, there's some like big screens for us to put graphics on. I'd like to put some of the next Nook alpha on there if there's time. If not, then I'll just have to rely on the anniversary images that we've been using quite a lot recently. But then, to be honest, those kinds of images work really well for new audiences as well, so that might be a better idea anyway. We're going to have some quite interesting stuff at the booth, which should be quite fun, I think. Any word on when you can order hoodies? I think I've got a meeting with Filippo. Let me have a look. He hasn't got back to me. Yeah, he wants to finalise some details about how we want to handle the sales. So soon, I should think. Yeah, I asked. We were having a chat about how the production was going. He says production is going well, and whether I'm available for a quick call to discuss some of the sales, the sale of the merch, like how we want to handle that. Basically, it'll be things like confirming price and all that kind of stuff. I think we've already Did we already resolve that? I think we have. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I did it. It'll be in boosters somewhere. I think what was interesting about the last mint, the Maxi mint, we actually had a load of new people come in. So some like server regulars were able to get like able to mint 3 maxis, but there were, I think, 144 different wallets minted maxis, which is pretty cool for, you know, considering we only dropped 250. That's pretty good, you know. That would be like Clay's minting into, let me have a think, 7,000 wallets, something like that. Yeah, that's about right. Hello, Culverin. So yeah, it's pretty good now. Like loads of new people in the chat, just, you know, saying, "How do I do this? How do I do this? How do I do that?" And this is my first mint, etc., etc. And yeah, like it attracted a few new people to the community. It was really awesome. And then of course, like we're just about to close out, so we've got 250 sparrows, and then we've got 250 of the one after that, in hopefully in 2 weeks time ish. We'll be doing the next one, and then we've got the airdrop, so you'll have about 5 days approximately to get your sets in order for the airdrop. So the airdrop is for anyone who has got a maxi. Let's start from the start. You need a raven, you need a switch, you need a maxi, you need a sparrow, you need the next one. And if you've got a wallet with all 5 of those in, then you will receive an airdrop. If you've got 2 of each of those in, then you will get 2 airdrops, etc. The rarity of those doesn't matter. So yeah, you'll have 5 days after we mint the final Knitty, the final S2 mintable Knitty, and then you'll get the airdrop. And I think people are definitely going to want this airdrop. And I'm not doing that as a sales pitch or anything, but I think people are going to be quite excited about it. I dropped a clue about what it was in on Maxi, so yeah, I think people are going to, and it's very appropriate, like it's named appropriately. So if you know what I'm talking about, if you know, you know, right? So yeah. Yeah, people are talking in chat about how many they get. I think like what happens is like we had about 144 different wallets, and then like a few people were minting several, you know. And then there were people at the end coming at the end saying like, "Oh, I missed it," you know. But you can pick them up in secondary well enough. Okay, so we're gonna start wrapping it up again. I'll just give it a few more minutes for any more questions. I think I've answered everything anyway. Upcoming, we've got a couple of events upcoming. Obviously, we've got the mint tomorrow. We've got the Sparrow mint tomorrow. And what I will do is, once we've minted out, I'll get on stream for that. That'll be in Discord. And then we've got a Knitty Natter coming up on the 20th, I think. So that's the weekend social. Yep. Next Knitty Natter on the 20th. And we can do these AMAs anytime really. So what I'm hoping to do is obviously there'll be a few more previews of things as we start to close out S2, and then we're going to move on to more Nook stuff, which I'm really excited about because I haven't really had the time to put into it since the little man was born. So I'm really looking forward to have that time to work on it. And there's going to be basically, I'll be going back to work at the university in September, but I'm only part-time now, so essentially I think they're going to ask me to go back for more hours, to be honest, but we'll see what happens with that. So someone's bought 28 Knitties. S1s. Are they all S1s? That's really interesting, isn't it? Some other games that might be... Yeah, so we've been doing marbles, right? But yeah, it might be some interesting ones that... yeah. I shared an interesting one that was made by some of my old students. To Potato the other day. I think it'd be a really cool one to do. But also we can like it'd be quite good just to do some playthroughs of stuff as well. Like doing the return of the Obra Dinn would be really interesting. I'm not sure if you can do that on stream though, to be honest. But there are other games that we can do. Like Dark Quest might be interesting. It's a fairly slow-paced board game style thing, Okay, we'll wrap it up there. I wonder who's been buying S1s. I don't think they're linked to me. I think they're probably linked to the general market downturn right now, and everyone's price is going down. I think I saw a Pixel the other day went for like 1,400 ADA. So just everything's down, isn't it? And someone's bought 30 now. Wow. You just sort of see there's sort of like a point where like the true floor is, right, where the real floor of a project is, which is the point at which the negotiation between the lowest buy price and the lowest sell price occurs, right? And it's in that in between bit. That's the actual real floor. Like what we see as floors on marketplaces are not actually floors. The floor is actually what someone is willing to pay for something and what someone is willing to sell it for. And it's the bit in between. It's the mediation or the negotiation aspect. That's the floor. As that mediation point becomes lower, more and more people will go, well, might be worth picking some of these up now, right? Thirty S1 Knitties. Wow. Okay. I don't know if hang on. I'm just going to have a look on recent. I'm assuming they're all showing up in recently sold. Let's talk a little bit about them. Where are they? Recently listed, recently sold. Maybe it's because we're about to enter crunch on Knitty Nook. Let's see. I need to check what the date is. So it's like, oh, hang on, I've got pages and pages here to go through. I'm assuming these are all going through. Yeah, this thing doesn't update very readily, does it? Not particularly often, I don't think. I don't think this is particularly up to date, but oh wow. Okay. They're not like floor ones either, right? Are they? I don't really look at the marketplaces for Knitties. Are these floor Knitties? I don't know. Seems like they're not. Wow. Okay. Cool. Right. So we'll wrap it there. So thanks everyone for coming along. This will be saved for anyone who missed it. So if you missed it, hello. We'll carry on the chat in the Discord server, and hope to see you for the mint tomorrow of Sparrow. I think there's been a lot of interest in Sparrow on social media, so I'm not sure if we'll be able to get multiple mints this time around. Maybe if you've got early access, you'll be able to do a multiple mint. Okay, thanks a lot for coming along, and we'll see you next time.